So today we're going to go over how to change our power steering fluid. We're actually going to flush the fluid out. All power steering fluids have a reservoir. So mine's real easy to get to on this truck, so that's kind of why we picked it. But before you start, you want to verify the level. So I'm going to put that in there, pull it out, and it's cold. It's not hot right now. So I'm going to turn it over to the cold side. And we're right in the cold, but we're just shy of the hot. So once when the fluid gets hot, it will be up here. So our fluid level is good. I do want to check the condition of it. So I take care of my car. The fluid's pretty clean, but the fluid gets to be real dirty. It will turn kind of a darkish color.
As pump components and seals gradually deteriorate, some dirt and debris can accumulate in the power steering fluid. If not flushed out, these particles can cause further damage to the pump and the seals in the rack and pinion unit. A power steering fluid replacement is performed by removing all old fluid from the power steering reservoir and replacing it with new fluid. As the steering wheel is turned, the new fluid is circulated through the power steering system, pushing the old fluid towards the power steering reservoir. The suction tube of the power steering fluid service machine collects the old fluid as it returns to the reservoir, while new fluid is continually being added until all fluid has been replaced. Power steering fluid should be replaced according to the manufacturer's recommendations.
So this would be an example of a fluid starting to get a little bit dirty, has some black soot in there. So you just look at the fluid. You can use transmission fluid, by the way. So, but a lot of manufacturers would advise against it now. But through the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, you could put transmission fluid into your power steering. So what we're going to be using today is we're going to be using a Mightyvac pump to suck out the fluid. We'll also be using the air hose type. So one's a hand pump, one's an air hose. But the first thing is we're going to be turning this car left and right, and we don't want to wear out wear a flat spot on our tire. So let's go ahead and raise the car up. And all you want is those front tires off the ground. So power steering pumps usually narrow on the filler neck, so you want to get a funnel that's going to actually fit into that. Oh, this one's not. Let me go get another one. So I found a funnel that actually fits in. You do want to try to use a funnel because you don't want to get any oil on your serpentine belts. So there's going to be a lot of dripping involved. That's why I put the fender cover a little bit closer, so when I pull this out, I could cover it with a rag and put it right to the side. It is a messy job. So all right, so we're going to use the vacuum bleeder, the Mightyvac. Okay, this is the switch. So this is to pump the fluid out. When the switch is up, when you push the switch down, this is to suck the fluid out. And then it has a little lever here, or a little attachment. You just step on that, stick this inside here, and I'm going to suck all my fluid out of my reservoir. And I don't recommend doing this with the vehicle running because you don't want to get air in the system because the air could potentially damage your pump. Okay, so I used to have students turning the steering wheel back and forth as they sucked out fluid and filled it back up, but it destroyed at least one pump by having air get sucked into the pump and the pump wore out. Okay, so now, like I say, work cleanly, get that fluid, protect that fluid tip. And now let's go ahead and put our funnel in. You don't want to have any dirt going in there, so funnel, I'm not worried about the outside, I'm worried about the tip. And always just peer down inside. And now I want to put some more fluid in here. and then we're going to start it up and we're going to turn it a couple times. And power steering pumps usually don't hold a lot of fluid, so it's very common to overfill this. Yep, look at that right there, right at the top. Okay, so set that aside, and then let's go ahead and start turn this from lock to lock. So I'm going to go ahead and put this cap back on just so it stays within the reservoir, and let's go ahead and start this car. Make sure your hands are clean because you don't want fingerprints on your door like this. That's something that really gets people upset. So clean your hands, or have somebody that has clean hands. And then you're just going to turn it all the way till steering wheel locks. And you're going to go all the way to the steering wheel locks on the other side. And I always say do this like 3 times, full cycle. And what that is doing, it's taking that fluid and it's circulating through the entire system on both sides of the steering gear, or if it has a rack and pinion, on both sides of the rack and pinion. So now we're ready to suck this out. That in there, and this is a power steering flush. So we're going to show you a couple other ways to do this now, once I get this all out. And normally this would be really dirty fluid. So if you have a power steering pump that's making noise, now you notice that mine was quiet, but if it's making noise, before you condemn the pump, change the fluid. And then I'm going to show you an additive at the end that would actually help make the pump be quiet. So before I condemn the pump, if it's just starting to whine, change the fluid. Sometimes that will cure the whine that you have with the power steering system. So this is my second fill. And you want to do this like 3 times, or until the fluid's clean. So with my students, all the cars, look at that, I did that perfectly. Right at the top right here. See how it doesn't take much at all. It's right at the top. So I tend to see students overfill. They think it's like the engine oil where it takes a full gallon almost. This takes less than a pint. So you don't need to put a lot of fluid in there. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and try some new techniques to give you some ideas. So you might be wondering why I'm cutting cardboard right now. Because some people don't have access to a lift, and I want my students to be able to do a power steering pump and not have to rely on the lift. So again, you don't want that tire pivoting on dry concrete or dry asphalt. So what I just did is I created a turn plate. So it's put 2 of these under each tire, and I'm gonna put some grease in the middle of these, and the car will turn on these cardboard and protect the tire. So let's get some grease. Okay, so we're gonna get some grease. Don't need a lot, just a little. Get a little bit of grease on there so it has something to turn on. You don't need it all the way to the corners because it's just going to be right underneath the tire. Okay, so you can push the car on to do this, or you could jack up the car, which I think would be kind of a waste of labor. Just roll the car onto these, but we have the car already lifted, so we're just going to put these right underneath our tires. Right here. And right here. Let's go ahead and lower this down. So these should act as turn plates to keep the tires from wearing out. Okay, so we just filled our power steering pump. So let's go ahead and steer this car. Remember, you don't have to do it more than 3 times lock the lock, so it doesn't have to be excessive. You don't have to go fast or lock all the way to one way. And I have my foot on the brake too. Lock all the way the other way. That's 1. That's 2. And that's 3. Now we're going, instead of using the hand pump, we've demonstrated the hand pump one. Now we're going to actually use the vacuum pump. Now, Mr. Lear, who's videotaping, did bring up the point that it says brake bleeder, and he asked about the rubber seal and that the seal expands. We have not had a problem with that. This one's like 3 years old. But I would think that you could go ahead and order a new seal if you need to. So now it's controlled by this one little valve here. Stick it in and suck out the fluid. There we go. Sucked all that fluid out. Now I can disconnect the air hose. I'll fill it up again. And this, I believe, is my 3rd time, right? Filling it up. And that's all it really needs. If you maintain your vehicle, that's all I would really want you to do, is just 3 times. Now, I gotta be real careful with my fluid now, because this is my final time. And I don't want to bring it up as full as I had it. And let's see how we are. Oh, went just a hair above the hot. So if the car was hot, that would be good, but it's not hot. So let's go ahead and suck some out. It's that simple. So if you overfilled it, we have the tool to set the level right. Just a little bit. Let's check this level. Yeah, I'm good. It's right at the top of the cold, which means it will be at the top of the hot when it gets hot. So I'm good. And I don't have to turn it anymore because that was my final time. If you notice right now, I've just threw my funnel down. And like I say, this is a messy job. Thank God I have my fender cover here, because that kept this from leaking all over the place. Okay, so again, take a look at this. See all this fluid right here? That would have been on the car, and then we got to steam clean this car. So use fender covers. So I showed you a really neat trick with the 2 pieces of cardboard and the grease. That is to mimic an actual turn plate, which alignment machines come naturally with. So I used to have students do the power and steering flush on these turn plates on the alignment machine, but the problem is if you oversteer it and you just go crazy, the car actually walks. And it actually walked off the turn plate, and one of the tires actually came off the lift on the passenger side. So the car walked that way. So I do no longer have students doing power steering flushes on these turn plates on the alignment machine, because the car was on the ground, so the car dropped this far, but it's not good. It hit the suspension. So we don't use the alignment machine anymore for the turn plates. We just use the cardboard.